Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 317 of the Canadian Football Countdown, a proud member of the Canadian Football Podcast Network and the Alternative Football Network. We're back with another deep dive episode here this week, diving into the CFL season from a team-by-team perspective. Last week, it was the BC Lions that we got to talk about with Richard from the CFC Discord. And this week, we're talking about the other Cats team. It's the Hamilton Tiger Cats this week, episode 317. Hamilton Tiger Cats CFL season deep dive. It's just me from the CFC crew here tonight, Ryan, but I'm joined by a very special guest who I'll introduce in just a quick moment here. Of course, the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you by our presenting sponsor, Game Time TV. You can learn more at GameTimeTV.ca or Facebook.com/GameTimeTVMB. If you're joining us live tonight, send in those comments, send in those questions throughout the evening. Now let's bring in our guest here from Hamilton Sports Central, also Canadian Football Central, talking lots of CFL, lots of Hamilton Tiger Cats. He's decked out in his Ticats gear, head to toe. Rick is here. Rick, how are you doing tonight?
Can't forget the helmet.
He's got the helmet and everything. Perfect.
I'm ready to go and coach. Just put me in. I'm doing well.
I'm hoping you won't need the helmet for tonight's activities of just podcasting, but you know what? Safety first. You're all set up and ready to go no matter what.
That's right.
Happy to have you joining us here tonight. Second appearance, I believe, on the Canadian Football Countdown. We had you on the past, Talk Fantasy. Of course, you are our fantasy champ in the CFC
season number one, I believe,
in the first inaugural season, and what a run it was that year. And so we had you on once in the past. Happy to have you back now to talk through everything Ticats here tonight. Let me finish the housekeeping notes first. As always, we want to acknowledge that the Canadian Football Countdown is brought to you from Treaty 1 territory, traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Métis Nation, as well as from Treaty 4 territory, traditional territory of the Cree, Dakota, Lakota, Nakota, and Métis Nation. Also, check out the Discord community if you want to play in fantasy football leagues and potentially take down the whole CFC crew like Rick did once upon a time, or if you just want to chat with us in between episodes, come join the Canadian Football Countdown Discord community. Link is in the episode description. Free to join us over there. Rick's there, the famous FM fan in the Discord community. I'm sure folks who are join us there know you well, but come on over and join the party. You got anything to plug on the Discord perspective? I like to hear from the members of the community. Try to sell it for us.
You know, the one thing that I will try to sell for you is if you need fantasy stats and numbers and charts, Ryan's the man to go to, because he'll have all those fun stats and who gets the most targets on what side. I will say though, I did impact your pay for the cheapest defense. I've noticed
yes.
And pay up at other positions.
It's the winning strategy, I tell you. That's what you got to do when the defenses don't make a lot of production from the fantasy perspective. Let's dive in to the Hamilton Tiger Cats 2025 season. We'll talk through our preseason expectations, hit on the most notable storylines throughout the season. We'll take a little bit of a look ahead to the offseason ahead for the team here as well. Of course, this is a team that finished last season, 2024, 7-11, fourth in the East Division that year. Once again, a really slow start for the team, as had been the case for several years in a row, and then all of a sudden turned it on late in the season, but not enough to make the playoffs. And boy, did they load up in the offseason coming into this year. They finished an 11-7 record in 2025, first in the East Division, but do fall in the East Final to the Montreal Alouettes in a close game there. We're going to break that all down here tonight, but let's start with preseason expectations for you, Rick. What were you expecting to see out of the team this year?
I mean, I would have thought. Now you're talking about after training camp, correct?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. So first off, I was not expecting Kenny Lawler to come to Hamilton. I'll just be straight up. I definitely did not see that coming. You would have thought that they would have spread the touchdowns around more than just what they did. The other thing that I noticed going into the season, like I kind of expected top two in the division because I mean with Chad Kelly still out, Ottawa hasn't been the greatest over the last few years. I knew at least we could get top two. Did I think that we're going to finish above Montreal? No. But with the way that Ted Gavea was building the team, you could sense it in the stands that, this could be the year, but unfortunately it wasn't. It wasn't meant to be this year. Eventually it will come.
Eventually it'll come. Trust me, as somebody from Winnipeg, eventually it will come. The streak will be broken. It does end eventually. I was much the same as you on my preseason expectations for the team. I think a lot of people were high on them, had them again top two. A lot of people putting them at number one in the East Division. Not a lot of faith in Nick Arbuckle out in Toronto. Probably had people putting Toronto lower, and oddly enough, Arbuckle wasn't the problem at all, but that's the conversation for Argo's deep dive episode. But reasonably having the Ticats ahead of them, having them in that battle with Montreal, hard to really buy in on Ottawa after the way they tailspin the year before. And I think there was some doubt potentially in Davis Alexander because he was a fresh face, so to say, as in terms of a starter in Montreal. So I think there were expectations for Hamilton to be pushing for first in the East. I think I might have had them finishing first in the East in my preseason predictions, having them go off to the Grey Cup, which, yeah, like you said, was not meant to be. But I think the reason everybody was higher on a team, which, could have seemed a little crazy to think, oh, yeah, this team is definitely a top two team given the 7-11 and fourth in the East finish the year before. But it was all of the additions they made in the offseason. Ted Gavea comes over from Winnipeg to be the GM in Hamilton, puts his stamp on the team in pretty remarkable fashion with the number of guys he brought in throughout the offseason, a lot of them former members of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers who he was associated with. And then so much of the storyline for the Ticats this year was the Ted Gavea story. Unfortunately, his battle with cancer, and very, fitting in a not the happiest way, of course, that the night they are doing the Fort Ted night with the game to honor him is the night he passes away the morning of the game, and the rest of the season kind of being dedicated to him from there on forward. So it's hard to talk about the Ticat season without, I think the first spot we have to talk about is his impact on this team and how they played this year. What to you stood out as the most impactful offseason additions they brought in?
So I will say, so there's two different spots that I see. First off, I don't know, not the hardcore Ticat fans, but those fans wouldn't realize of how much in the background was changed. Like, I'm talking about, like, upper management was changed. A bunch of those people went to Ottawa, and they brought in new people, so, like, new scouts, new upper management. I mean, there's still some people that are still here, but still, those people he brought in. Impactful. Offense, I would probably have to say Kenny Lawler.
Yeah.
Ones that I definitely did not see coming. On defense, there's a few of them. One is Philip Osai. Definitely did not see him coming with, what was it, 6 sacks in the season.
Yeah, he was fantastic.
There was Braxton Hill. No one saw him coming the way that he did. Devin Versek, our first overall draft pick. No one thought that he would have had the season. And let's give honorable mention to the veteran himself, Julian Hauser, who would have thought he would have had 13 sacks on the season.
Yeah, those are all great impacts, and a lot of them being on the defensive side of the ball there. Yeah, Verisek, fantastic rookie season for him this year. I remember that, watched him get injured in that one game and holding your breath after that one, because you hate to see a Hate to see such a brilliant young player getting carted off, but he ended up coming back, I think, later in the season. Correct me if I'm wrong.
It was like the next week.
Oh, well, perfect. There you go. He's got that young blood in him. He can bounce back quick, it seems. Yeah, Kenny Lawler is obviously the big one on the offense. Like, this is the prized fish of free agency, one of the top receivers in the game. And you really saw the impact of Lawler early in the season, especially where Bo was just chucking it to him day and night, really. And especially that Argos game in, I think, week 7, where he just completely took off. I think it was 45 fantasy points. I don't know what the exact numbers on the day were, but I think there were 3 touchdowns involved in there. A lot was made in the offseason about, again, members of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers being brought over. So Liam Dobson on the offensive line, Taiwan Garbett and Miles Fox and Owen Hubert were all additions on the D line that were former Bombers. Brian Cole in the linebacker core. Brendan O'Leary Orange in that crew. Drew Wolotarski also being brought over. It was like, here, I'm going to pick all the players I can pry away from the team that I've helped build 5 straight runs to the championship, and I'm going to come in and augment what I thought was already a good Ticats roster coming in. I think my stance coming out of 2024 was this team really rallied down the stretch. They had a lot of good young talent to build around, and they didn't need to tinker a whole ton in free agency. So I think some of these additions, we haven't talked about Deshaun Amos, Reggie Stubblefield being some notable additions on the defensive side of the ball as well, that all of these guys added on. We're like, yeah, this is seemingly like going to be a team that is going to be able to produce pretty well this year and be a contender in the CFL.
The only thing that I will say about our receiving core that kind of burst my bubbles is the fact that if you always throw to Kenny Lawler and Tim White, they're going to expect it. Then we all know about Tim White's drops, which don't even get me started with those. And then it's like, okay, well, if they're double teaming Lawler, there's other people that open. Like, look at Keandre Smith, who had outstanding numbers this year. This was, like, you got to give credit to the medical staff for Hamilton. Kenny Lawler's first full season.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Where he wasn't even injured. But it would have just been nice to see, like, outside of, I think, Keandre, Tim White, and Kenny Lawler, like, those were, like, our top 3. Everyone else had, like, 300 yards or less. Like, spread the ball around.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny Lawler, 59.7% reception rate. Even if they catch on, like, Bo's going to throw that ball up and hope Lawler comes down with it, and he's going to come down with it often enough, even if it's not a good rate, that it's probably going to be a net positive for you, even if he's being double, triple teamed, because that's just the kind of player he is. But you're right. It seemed like they were really top heavy offensively this year with Lawler, White, Smith, etc. The run game with Greg Bell. We're going to get into all of that here shortly as well. But such high hopes for the team coming into the year. Again, the storyline for the last couple of years had been slow starts to the year. I think at least a couple years in a row there, right? It was like 0-6, 0-7 starts to the season, and they always seem to turn it around and get close-ish to 500. What went through your mind when the team starts 0-2 again this year, despite all the hype?
I mean, it wouldn't have bothered me had we have not played Calgary and Saskatchewan the second time in a row to start the season. Like, change it up. Like, because, I mean, obviously, Corey Mace's defense, it is what it is. Calgary, okay, you would have thought that we would have had a chance. And then usually it's like after like the 3rd, 4th game, we seem to like pick it up. So it's like fans already used to it by now. It's like, okay, if we don't start, for 2-0, 1-1, 2-1 after the first 3 games, why even bother worrying about it? Because we know that the team's just gonna somehow bounce back.
Right. That's kind of the vibe I felt too. That this felt different the start to the season than recent years, and that it was the 0-2 start going into the bye. But I think everybody was still feeling like this team was going to turn it around. And it was shocking in that 0-2 start, only 26 points put up, only 23 points. Because, yeah, you're looking at the likes of Lawler, White, Keandre Smith, I think had 700 something yards the year before. Shamar Bridges was in the running for most outstanding rookie. We'll talk about the fall of Shamar Bridges here tonight, I'm sure, as well. But that stacked receiving core and Greg Bell and Bo Levi Mitchell coming in the year, I'm pretty sure I remember a lot of people ranking this as the number one offense in the CFL, and they're going to light it up every week. And they didn't really do that in the first two games. So I think there was some concern there, but I always say that the team that on paper seems to win free agency is probably not going to come out of the gate firing, because all of these new additions take time to gel. And
I was just gonna say that with all the players from Winnipeg, Montreal, a few from Calgary, like it's gonna take, most time to gel. And then if you bring back most of the players the following year, okay, well, it will only take a few players to get used to it, not, as many as we brought in. I think it was like 11 players from like Winnipeg or something like crazy like that.
But it really didn't take long to gel at all. Like after those 2 games, there's a bye week there. They get a little time to reset, and then they rattle off 6 straight wins from there and go vault themselves up ahead in the East Division. And Montreal, they had the good start, but then Alexander goes down, and this is Hamilton's time to kind of take over. And they end up the second half of the year jostling a little, or it gets a little bit close in terms of the standings. But that 6-game win streak, suddenly it's 35 points, 51 points, 23, 30, 37. So, in those 5 games following, 4 out of 5 are over 30 points. The offense is back on track, and it's like, okay, yeah, it wasn't doom and gloom to start the year. The ghosts of Ticats past, at least early seasons, is not what we're facing here at the start of the year. I want to focus on the offense first. We'll get into defense. We'll talk special teams, all of that here tonight. Bo Levi Mitchell manages to play all 18 games for the second straight year, despite all of those injury history in the past. With quarterbacks in general, it's a rare case to see a QB play all 18 games. Bo has somehow done it 2 years in a row. He also throws for over 5,000 yards for the second year in a row. Any doubts from years past that Bo Levi Mitchell is back to arguably prime Bo Levi Mitchell are definitely squashed, and he can even run with the ball now. Who knew he could do that at this stage of his career? What did you see from Bo this year?
So here's my thing is sometimes, so depends on what happens in the game. Will determine what Bo you get. If there's not a run game, then you'll see like a 40-50 yard attempt Bo for like 400 or 500 yards. If there's a run game, okay, then you're only getting 200 yards from Bo. My thing that makes me mad about this league is Bo's thrown for 5,000 yards, 36 touchdowns each year, and yet, like, I don't know what else this guy has to prove to the league to get MOP.
Yeah, I mean,
like, does he have to throw for like 6,000 yards next?
I mean, if Nathan Rourke's throwing for roughly that many as well, granted, I don't know the number off the top of my head how many Rourke had this year, but if he's throwing for that many and doing all the rushing he does and all of that, plus he's the Canadian kid, it's going to be tough to unseat Nathan Rourke. I'm not saying that Bo Levi Mitchell is not deserving of the award at all. It's one of those unfortunate situations where only one guy can win the award, and I think it's a tough battle that he's. Yeah, I don't know what else he can do beyond what he's done, because he's.
I mean, does he have to get us to the Grey Cup for people to say, "Oh, we'll finally give it to Bo"?
Maybe. I don't know. Definitely an MOP quality season for him. I mean, 11 interceptions was pretty sweet in there as well. I think that was lowest in the CFL, if I'm not mistaken. Second lowest in the CFL. They led the league in passing touchdowns, passing attempts, passing yards a game, second and third, points per game, second. The run game, though, was a little bit kind of finishing 7th, 8th in a lot of different categories this year. And that truly was the tale of 2 seasons for Greg Bell. And I do recall a time about midpoint of the season where we were having this discussion, and I think one of the game day threads, you and I, in the CFC Discord, where you're saying, I'm sick of Greg Bell. He's not doing anything so far this year. And sure enough, that was the game where he had his first breakout of the year, and I think rushed for 150 yards or something like that. And then middle to late point of the season, like, yeah, max 65 rushing yards in a game in his first 8 starts, and then 6 of his last 7 were over 75. Do you have any idea, like, what shifted midway through the season that this team that had been predominantly pass suddenly decided to switch to let's start giving Greg Bell the ball?
I don't know if you've noticed it, but if you ever watch a Ticat game and Greg Bell's the running back, watch him when he's right beside Bo and he goes to run, he doesn't get as many yards. If he's behind Bo and then Bo hands him the ball and he runs, he'll get more yards. And that's what the difference was, is if you're standing behind Bo, you're not going to get much of a hop, skip, and a jump start.
Right.
To hit the opening. But if you're, 2-3 yards behind him, you get that running start. He hands you the ball. You have the open slot. Well, now you can get more yards.
It's interesting. I didn't notice that. We get premium film breakdown on the deep dive here. I love it.
When you're sitting in the stands and watching them, it just, you catch up on these things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Greg Bell, great season for him in total. He passed the 1,000-yard mark despite only playing 15 games. He had 426 through the air, 74 targets, 62 receptions. He's in that collection of guys that are just those pass-catching running backs that I feel like across the CFL we are seeing more and more than ever before in recent years. Like, I started looking, like, 74 targets, that's got to be up there, like, for in terms of total targets in the league. But you look at it like Oliveira, Rankin, Butler, all of these guys are around the same thing. So it seems to be league-wide that where teams are learning to use their running back more as just the running back.
I was going to say, Greg, I wouldn't say is 100% like him, but like the whole dual kind of threat kind of reminds me of like a Walter Fletcher.
Yeah, for sure.
Walter Fletcher got let go by Montreal. But
I'd say they're in the same.
Our offensive line did amazing this year.
Okay, yeah.
Even though, like, with all the extra time that they gave Bo, and, Bo, I don't have the numbers in front of me. I think he was sacked like 11, 12, 13 times. Like one of the lowest sacks against.
27, according to the stats sheet. 4th in the CFL.
Oh, okay. Well, almost least.
Yeah, still top half.
So. Yeah. But I mean, just think of all like those extra long passes like that he could have thrown. Like, he had more touchdowns this year than previous years because he had that extra time. They got people open because of the extra time. So,
who on the offensive line stood out to you as making the biggest impact?
I would say
it's a tough one.
I would say our guards. One player I will mention that I do not want back is Jordan Murray.
Okay.
I don't know if you saw it in the playoff game when he took that stupid penalty for no apparent reason, and it gave them that first down of which we could have gotten the ball. And so it's just like he's getting up there in age. He's undisciplined. Like, we have younger offensive tackles. Like, you have Bordner, you have Bordner, and I'm trying to think of who the other offensive Bordner, and having a brain.
You've got Liam Dobson, or is he in the middle? I know.
No, Dobson's on the right guard.
Okay.
I am thinking Quentin Barrow was who I was thinking of. So I'd get, like I said, I would say Revenberg and Dobson, a tie for the top offensive line person.
Shout out to them. Yeah, offensive line is one of those tricky ones because you have no stats to go off of, right? Unless you track the deep
And
stats of how many sacks they individually were the cause of. But
not only that, but this was the year that Coulter Woodmansey went from like tackle guard to center.
That's a tough shift
because David Beard went to Edmonton.
Right.
So it's like you're trying to get a guard tackle to play a position I don't know if he's played before, and then him and Bo have to get on the same page. So it's like that takes time to get that chemistry going.
Shout out to the offensive line because they don't get enough credit for what they do.
No.
We talked about Bo. We talked about the running game, the offensive line. We talked about the receivers a little bit already. I want to hone in on Shamar Bridges because we talked about, the top three, Lawler, White, Smith. Shamar Bridges was, correct me if I'm wrong, 1,000-yard receiver or awfully close to it the year before until he ended up with that season-ending injury with a couple of weeks to go, second half of the season. Coming into this year, everybody expected him to play a big role. Disastrous sophomore season, I would say, for Shamar Bridges. Finishes 361 yards and 2 touchdowns, only 34 catches for Shamar Bridges this year. What happened?
It's that one wideout, like the far wideout. That's the farthest. Like, what is it? What is it? WR2? Is it WR2? The farthest wideout?
WR1 according to my charts. I don't know what the actual like boundary or field or I never know those terminologies. So anyways,
the farthest wide receiver, he was on this side, like the player side. I think it's like no. So Scott, it goes wide receiver, slot back, and then slot back, wide receiver on this side.
So essentially switched entire from one left side of the field to the right side.
Yeah. So if you're hardly throwing to the right side, well, he's not going to get as many passes as he did because you got to remember, Lawler's on the left side now, where it was Tim White and Bridges. Now it's Lawler and White. So when you're hardly throwing to that side of the field, obviously you're not going to get many passes when they're just throwing to Smith, White, and Lawler.
I think it's tough for young receivers to make that positional switch sometimes. We saw it early season from Khalil Pimpleton in Ottawa as well, who went from, Geno Lewis came in and took his spot again out on the left side, and he had to shift. I think he shifted inside to the right on the depth chart there, and he picked it up at times throughout the season. But I see both of those guys as guys that struggled a little with the positional change. And how much of is it that Bridges just wasn't making the plays? I mean, he wasn't getting a lot of opportunities. I don't know if he wasn't getting open or now shifting to that side. You have to get open more than you would so before for Bo to think to look that way. And also somebody like Lawler coming in and getting 144 targets. Well, somebody's going to lose targets in the process. And unfortunately, Bridges was that odd man out. And yeah, it really seemed like a tough year for him, and I'm hoping he gets that bounce back. And I remember thinking at some point in the season of like, it would be so much better if you just moved him back to his natural position, mixed him into the mix every once in a while, and he might be more productive. And to get somebody else out there on that side as well. That's where I felt with the receiving core, like they were really strong up top, but the depth at times wasn't there. Brendan O'Leary-Orange had his moments, Shamar Bridges had his moments. But other than that, outside of your top 5, you've got Tyler Ternowski with 119 yards as the next you've got up on the depth there.
Keep in mind, this is probably the healthiest our receiving group was.
Yep.
Like they signed Drew Wolodarski. He dressed one game, he didn't even get a pass.
Yeah.
So, I mean, like Bridges is a free agent this year. Wolodarski's back. I didn't even know he signed a 2-year deal because I couldn't find anything saying otherwise, and no one has him listed as a free agent. So hopefully he'll get more. Hopefully he'll get playing time next year. But I mean, like right now, we have Keandre Smith, Wolodarski, Giovanni Robinson, and Kenny Lawler, and Ternowski as our 5 receivers right now.
And
That are
I love Keandre Smith. He is one of the top Canadian receivers. He's one of the top receivers in general in the CFL. And it was such a fun storyline this year with his fantasy pricing as well, which made absolutely zero sense any given week where, oh, he just rattled off 30 points. Let's drop him to $2,500. Oh, now he scored 2 points. Let's bump him up to 12,000 on a buy. If I could have answers about one thing from the CFL, that's what I want an answer on: is what happened there.
You know what though? I'm curious because they're doing fantasy this year.
Yep.
I don't know. Is it a season long league? Is that
I don't have any insider info, of course, but my perception has been that they are adding in season long functionality for CFL fantasy, but I don't expect them to get rid of the week to week game zone fantasy.
okay? I was gonna say, I'm just curious to see what if there's gonna be pricing or how they're gonna do it for next season for the week to week, because it's like the first couple of weeks, it's anyone can go off, everyone's the same price, and then it usually takes like 4 to 5 weeks
Yeah.
for everyone to catch up, prices to change, and it's like, well, then you got to go for your bargain bins.
Yeah, always got to go bargain hunting when it comes to CFL fantasy. All right, we've talked about the offense. Let's shift a little into the defense. Bottom tier in most stats on the season, sixth or lower in a lot of these stats. Points allowed per game, 27.6, allowing 374 yards of offense, second worst in the league. Most first downs by a wide margin at 448. The rushing defense, 111 yards per game allowed. I think that's one I want to take deeper into, is talking about the pain points of the rush defense for this team. But they were also top tier in the league when it came to a few notable stats, which was led the league in interceptions, third in the league in fumble recoveries, first in the league in total turnovers, first in the league tied in terms of passing touchdowns allowed, and 30 plus yard completions. They were second best in the league, so they kind of locked it down there. We talked about those notable impact players that were brought in free agency, but what was your perception of the play of the defense as a whole this year?
So my problem isn't our defensive ends on the defensive line. My problem is the defensive tackles and the linebackers. Because obviously, we don't need to worry about secondary because they had the most interceptions. And, with Amos, Peters, Cachetones, Talbert, Moxie, okay, I'm not worried about them back there. I'm more worried about the will linebacker, the middle linebacker. Stubblefield plays Sam, so I'm not worried about that. So it's just the will linebacker, middle linebacker, and the defensive tackles. Because if you can't get pressure on the offensive line to get through to the quarterback, you ain't getting sacks, and you're just gonna let the quarterback sit back there all day long and just have a field day and just throw deep balls and get touchdowns.
Yeah, that really seemed like the struggle for the team was the run defense. I said it week after week down the stretch of the season. I was very strongly opinionated in the sense that this team is going nowhere in the playoffs because they can't stop the run, and it seemed like it didn't matter who the running back was. They were rattling off 100-yard games against them. Now, they actually, and we'll get to the playoffs in a little bit, they actually in the playoffs shut down the run game pretty well in the end of things, but a lot of weeks that was okay. When we're talking again from a fantasy perspective, pick the running back playing against Hamilton because they are going to produce, whether it be touchdowns, rushing yards, etc. It was a great matchup for running backs to face off against this defense, and they remind me a lot of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers bend but don't break defense that Trey hates to hear me talk about on the podcast over the last couple of years, because that's what the stats show us. Lots of yards given up, right? Yes, points given up, but again, passing touchdowns, least in the league. partially because a lot of rushing touchdowns came against them, but limiting the big completions, forcing the turnovers, let them drive down the field, but then force the key turnover. And I think that's the middle ground we saw between this defense throughout the entire season, where suddenly, there were some games where, hey, they're going to give up a lot of yards, but they're making that big key turnover that's going to shift the tide of things and be enough to carry them over the top.
I was even surprised. We were probably one of few teams that was able to shut down Davis Alexander in the playoffs.
Yep.
I wasn't expecting that, but I mean, anything's possible in the CFL. Nothing ends until you see those zeros on the clock. Anything's possible in the last three minutes, which I know to expect as a Ticats fan.
It's never over until it's over. So definitely, I think, run defense for me. We're going to talk about the offseason outlook in a little bit. That's an area to focus on. You talked about the different positions to focus on related to that. We'll get into that more. Special teams, shout out Mark Leggio, who set a career high in field goals made and field goal percentage, 92.9%. Only missed 4 field goals, only missed 2 converts all year long. He's come such a far way from his first season in Winnipeg, where folks were essentially running him out of town. What did you think of Leggio this year?
I mean, the good thing with Mark Leggio is, even if you're at the 30-yard line, the 25 to 30, and it's okay, we didn't get our first down. You can always count on him to go out and get you points when you need maybe to get points on the board. It's not like you have to say, oh, well, we don't have confidence in our kicker, we're going to keep our offense out there.
Right. Yeah, that was definitely the case. It's exciting to see him have that kind of turnaround, because I thought he still got such a raw deal in Winnipeg. They ended up trading, I think, that's when they traded for Castillo, I think, the 4th round pick to get his rights from BC or something like that to bring him back in. And I mean, Bomber fans aren't mad seeing this because they have Castillo who can kick 60-yarders when they need him to. But exciting to see, who I think just got more flack than he deserved, have that kind of turnaround here in Hamilton. And yeah, it certainly helps to be able to rely on that. And only once on the season did you have to have Bo Levi Mitchell come out and punt.
Yes.
He did that one.
Hey, listen, if Antwine can do those scrub kicks that everyone hates, Bo can punt.
And
if kickers can throw, Bo can punt.
I loved it. I loved that play. I forget the context on that one. Did the punter get hurt and that's why Bo was out there punting, or what was going on there?
No, you know what I think? It was? I think that... Was it the time that Gordon White got injured?
Oh, yes.
And then they had someone... Oh, they had Trevor Hoyt, who was the backup long snapper. And I guess they didn't have confidence in him holding, so it's like, okay, well, we'll throw it a trick play and have Bo punt it.
I love things like that when they happen. How many times has Bo Levi Mitchell punted in his career? Probably not more than 1, if not 2.
At least he didn't kick it off the side of his foot.
He did pretty good, actually. He had a pretty good punting average on that one. That was great to see. We've talked about a lot of the stats, a lot about the team's overall play from this year so far. I'm interested to, though, looking at the schedule from this season. We talked about 2-game losing streak, 6-game win streak, a little up and down. Which games, a couple of games that stood out the most to you as most memorable of the season?
So I'm gonna bring up... I don't know which one the first one was, because there's 2 of them that I was gonna bring up. Let me see if I can pull up the schedule and find out. It was... So the first one, I mean, you could say that it was due to Davis Alexander not playing, but even like the streak where we beat Montreal 35-17, and then the 51-38 against Toronto, to actually show people, okay, like this team is actually starting to come around and whatnot. And then, so the other game, I'm gonna kind of go in a dark area here, but every
At the
every
same
team
place.
has fans where fans don't get along with each other.
Right.
So the night that we had the Ted Gavea ceremony thing, obviously he passed that way. I've never, I don't want to be rude and say this, but when Ted died, like you seen like the whole Cat Nation come together.
Mm.
And like it wasn't people hating on, Tim White because he's dropping balls like everyone else is. It wasn't because of this. Like I'm sure when, I don't know if you watched it but when they had that moment for Ted, and like when everyone held up the Ted Gavea rally towels, like the whole stadium came together as one.
That was pretty sweet. I think I might have bumped my microphone. Hopefully, people can still hear me.
No, I heard you.
Okay, good. I never know. Sometimes I bump it and then it's not clear if I bumped it in the right spot to turn it off or not. So I just wanted to make sure I cleared that up before we went too far down that path. Absolutely agree with you. Like that game took on a entire different meaning. Do you remember which week that game was?
Yeah, that was the game that we played at home against Winnipeg.
Okay, yes.
That was
That would have been week 15, the
yeah.
32-21 win. Like, you cannot ask for a more, like I said, symbolic, memorable game than that. Honoring Ted in the game where his current team is playing against the former team. He passes away the morning of. It was a beautiful moment caused by, a tragic loss that really brought everybody together. I think league wide, we saw the 410 shirts across the CFL throughout the rest of the season, different coaching staffs wearing them and stuff like that. And yeah, that was definitely an emotionally charged game. And for the team to be able to come out and rally to a big win in that one was wonderful to see.
Then you got to include McMaster, and then Alcadia, his other alpha male or alpha fraternities from his university and his teams that he coaches. They all came down. So it's not just like two teams battling against each other. It's like two teams as a whole come together.
Right. That's the beautiful thing about the CFL is moments like that are ones that I love the most when we can see, it's more than just a game, but there's still a really good football game that was played underlying all of that night as well, to hit it all home in there. Yeah, kind of both games against Winnipeg stand out to me as memorable. The other one, not so good standpoint for the Ticats, was a couple weeks later in week 17, the 40-3 loss in Winnipeg. That happened to be the only game I actually made it to in Winnipeg this year. So that was a pretty good one for me to show up to, where the Ticats just looked lifeless completely in that game. And this was a team that's coming off a 3-game win streak, is in a pretty good position to carry things over a Winnipeg team that have been struggling to really cement themselves in the East Division. And they just looked lifeless completely, offensively, defensively, struggled across the board in that game. But then they bounced back the week after. And I mean, the defense struggled pretty hard with that 40 points they allowed in that game against Winnipeg, and then came back in that game against Toronto. And that defense was just a nightmare for, I want to say it was Jarrett Daggy at QB for Toronto in that game. And I don't know if I've ever heard a player mentioned as many times as I heard Philip Osai's name in that game. And I hadn't watched a ton of Ticats games so far in the year. And so I didn't know a ton of who Philip Osai was. After that game, I knew who he was because I think he had 3 or 4 sacks in that game. He was a monster all over the field. And the team put up, 8, 9 sacks, forced a couple turnovers, I want to say, in that one, and really came back with hey, no, we are still a contender here in the East Division. That was a bad game against Winnipeg. Don't sell us short.
Yeah.
trying to think if there's any other that stood out. I mean, yeah, that 6-game win streak early in the season, followed up by, I mean, I'm sure it must have been memorable. I don't remember the specifics, but a 41-38 overtime loss to BC in week number 10 sounds like on paper it was a fantastic game.
Of the 3 games against Toronto, 2 of them being over 45 points.
With a lot of points.
Because the third one, we lost by 2.
Oh, you know what? Yeah,
that was the one where they threw to Brissett, and then Larham came out and kicked the game-winning field goal. That was
Kate. That one was the most memorable game of the. I mean, I guess you could argue it wasn't the most memorable because it took me this long to remember it. But in hindsight, yes, that one was such an incredible football game because just like 10 seconds before that, the Ticats rally all the way downfield and Bo finds, I want to say, Lawler in the end zone for the go-ahead score there. And then Toronto marches back down the field, couple of plays, and crazy finish, crazy final 3 minutes. When you talk about, never counting your chickens before they hatch in the final 3 minutes, or being familiar that things can change on a dime, that was definitely one of those.
Yeah, because after Lawler scored that touchdown, there was 18 seconds left, and they threw to Brissett for 62 yards down to the 4-yard line.
Insanity. And it wasn't it was a well-covered catch, too.
Yeah, like, I don't even know how he caught that, but, like, that just goes to show, like, until that clock strikes 0, anything can happen.
For sure. Yeah, their schedule looks at, like, overall really up and down. 2 losses, 6 wins. 3 losses, 3 wins. And then trying to kind of trading to the end of the year, like, loss, win, loss, 37-point loss, 18-point win, 17-point loss. Like, who are these Ticats? And then 20-point win. Like, who are these Ticats coming into the playoffs? I don't think any of us truly knew, I guess, at that point in time. Which, let's go to the playoffs next there, and then we'll come back to the other topic after the next topic in the list after that. They get the first round bye. They managed to finish, I think, 1 win ahead of Montreal, get the bye. They seal the deal with that week 21 win over Ottawa. Montreal comes in. Everybody's riding the high of Davis Alexander off of what he did in that game against Winnipeg. Bo Levi Mitchell, this offense we're rolling the whole time, and yet we get a 19-16 loss, I think, on a last-second field goal. Take us through your thoughts on that overtime, or not overtime, that playoff game.
It's just like, I don't know what it was, but like neither team could get things going. Like, you had out of 35 points, you had 2 touchdowns, 1 per team. The rest of them were field goals. Like, it seemed like no one could get good field position whatsoever. Like, you had Kenny, they tried to go to Kenny Lawler all the time because the year before he had those 3 touchdowns
against Saskatchewan.
Against Saskatchewan in the playoffs. I guess they're trying to, they're not double teaming him, so let's throw him 13 times, and he only caught 9, but no touchdowns. And then it's like Greg Bell only got like 6.6 yards per carry. Bo had 269 yards, but couldn't get the touchdowns. That's where Braxton Hill came out of nowhere and had 12 tackles.
That's incredible performance.
But
yeah, it seemed like the defense held their own, right? Like, again, Davis Alexander held to 210 yards. He did rush for 64, but Stevie Scott III had the monstrous performance against Winnipeg in the previous round, and seeing what he did against them and knowing what the Ticats' run defense was the entire year, like, up until a couple weeks before, it was kind of like, okay, well, Montreal's probably going to play Hamilton. Hamilton has the bad run defense, but Montreal doesn't really run the ball, so that's not really something we need to be that worried about. And then Stevie Scott III came onto the scene late in the season and was like, okay, this is something to be worried about for the Ticats. They actually reined it in pretty well, 48 yards rushing to Scott III. Tice added 18. And yeah, Davis Alexander had a couple of nice runs in there, but I thought they held that down. They held Tyson Philpott to 30 yards. They held Tyler Snead to 57 through the air. Like, the defense did their job in this game. The offense did move the ball at times, it seemed. Bo only had 7 incompletions on the night, but they could just not find their way into the end zone. And this kind of reminded me of, wasn't it 2 years before Hamilton Montreal in the playoffs? Was a very similar vibe where it was a very low scoring game. And I think that might have been the one where Bo ended up getting pulled with a few minutes left in
it. So last year we did not make the playoffs.
Yeah. But I think it was the year before that.
No, I think that was the time when they put Bo in with like 3 minutes left. If I'm not mistaken.
They might have pulled him and then put him back in or something like that. I feel like something like that happened 2 or 3 years ago, where it was same thing. People expected a lot of offense at the time, and there was no offense to be had between these two teams that were struggling.
No, because 2004 we didn't make the playoffs.
Yeah.
So 2023. Yeah, we lost the semifinals 27-12.
Okay. That was a little more high scoring, I guess, on the Montreal side than I thought.
But even this year, just looking at it, it's like, other than the Winnipeg-Montreal game, every other playoff game was by 3 points.
Yeah. Yeah, it was
Whereas
close playoffs
weeks before that, anyone could get any points. Like, it was just, scores were all over the place.
Yeah, and they came close. Like, it came down to that last second field goal at Montreal, and you're facing the quarterback that had never lost in his career beforehand, and to bring it down to needing the last second field goal, I thought it was impressive throughout. Though, like, I had Montreal winning that game coming in, and yes, it was weird that a lot of people had the team that was technically the underdogs on the road as kind of the favorites. Just based on the momentum that Davis Alexander had. And the Ticats played them a close game. Unfortunately, Rick, once again, it's not to be for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. Another season, another missed opportunity. The drought continues for the team, but a promising season for them nonetheless. Before we move into the offseason stuff, one topic I like to touch on with each of these deep dives, and I think we've talked through a lot of the names tonight, so I'm not sure if you have other ones that come to mind, but unsung heroes for the team. We talk about the the big names, the Lawlers, the Bows, guys like that a ton, but who that we maybe haven't talked about tonight is somebody you want to shout out for their performance this season?
Ones that I will say, and we are going to go back to the defense. So I want to make sure that I pull up the actual CFL numbers, because my numbers are a bit off. Ones that are still currently with the team, I would say no one knew who Kyler Fisher was before this year. He's another one that had almost 70 total tackles. He was, if it wasn't for Kyle Wilson getting released, Kyle Wilson would have been up there in tackles. Devin Verisak with his block punts, interception, touchdowns, fumble recovery touchdowns. Mentioned Braxton, his 30 tackles in 8 games. Like, who would have thought he would have 30 tackles? Philip Osai, when the next man up mentality, 8 sacks in 12 games. Mario Kendrick, 5 sacks in 8 and 16 games. Like, there's, when you have players go down to injuries or aren't playing up to snuff, you need those people in, like, the veteran depth people or even rookies to come in and say, okay, like, this is our time. Like, we're taking a stand. And not only that, but then you have Jamal Peters, Stavros, Talbert, like they had 27 interceptions this year. Like who would have thought like the five of them would get like 27 interceptions at the beginning of the year? Because I would have told you definitely no, but now who knows who this upcoming season's unsung hero is going to be?
For sure. A couple extra names I'll throw it into there. One of my favorite random players in the CFL, Giovanni Robinson, fullback, tight end, whatever you want to call him, for the Ticats, who had himself 14 catches, 214 yards, and 2 touchdowns. This is a guy that was formerly a basketball player that's converted to a CFL fullback tight end and was at times one of the more productive parts of the offense.
Here's my thing with Giovanni Robinson is the guy's 6'8". Why not you throw to him more? No one's gonna jump. No one's gonna have that extra leap, that error to get the interception. If you throw it high enough, the guy's 6'8", and with that reach, he's gonna catch it.
Yeah.
Like you won't throw the ball into the end zone and have Carter from BC make that one-handed catch. Like a 6'8" guy,
stand up, yeah.
Just alley-oop it to him.
Just lob it up in the air. Yeah, shout out Giovanni Robinson, because it's not too often we see like a fullback tight end style player make an impact in the CFL.
And don't forget, he's from Jamaica too.
Right. Yeah, wasn't he like playing basketball on the national Jamaican team or something like that? I got to look up the story for Giovanni Robinson exactly. I remember looking this up and being pretty impressed with his career trajectory. Let me see if I can find it real quick. He's a global player. Not too often we see global players make impact on offense specifically, right? Like we'll see a couple of defensive global players. We'll see a lot of special team guys, a lot of punters, global status. But yeah, global tight end from Jamaica, used to be a basketball player, but is now a CFL tight end who made his impact at times this year. So yeah, lob him up the ball, alley-oop. He's ready for it. He's got the basketball background there as well. Shout out Isaiah Wooden in the return game this year as well, who 570 yards on punt returns, 1105 on kick returns, a couple of touchdowns. I want to say, is he getting NFL looks right now? I think I saw something about that.
Yes, he's getting a few of them. But Vaville's getting more than him, so Wooden has a greater chance to come back than Vaville does.
Both incredible talents, though. Like Wooden had a heck of a season this year, and was in conversation at points throughout the season of best return man in the CFL for sure.
Until he got injured.
And that's when Vaville kind of turned it on at that point and kind of stole the show for that conversation there as well. I think we've shouted out most of the names on this team at this point, or touched on them tonight, so that's great. Lots of guys to talk about, and everybody gets their flower.
One person that I will give a shout out to that does not get a lot of recognition, and I'm glad that they brought him on the team this year. Hopefully they bring him back. I'm going to go out of the box, Ryan, because you're going to think I wouldn't have thought of this. How about Jake Dolegala? 6'7", 245-pound, short yardage. I mean, he didn't get as many, touchdowns as like a Dustin Crum or like a Nathan Rourke, but like when you need a big guy to like go get that third and inches, he's that guy.
Yeah, you know what? That raised a point that I had thought about when I was doing the prep for this that I forgot to note down. So interesting in a league where it's just TDs are vultured by backup QBs nonstop across the CFL, or you look at the leading rushing touchdowns and half of them are backup quarterbacks. Dolegala had one rushing touchdown, and I know Litre came in there and kind of played that role at times for the team, but he only had 2. So by my count, there's only 3 touchdowns by sort of that QB sneak type role for the Ticats. Despite being one of the most productive offenses in the CFL, is fascinating to me that this team was just big plays putting the ball in, or Greg Bell was rushing it in from far out, or Bo was tossing it when they got near the goal line. Definitely a difference from the norm across the league from what I'd seen.
Yeah, like Bell would maybe rush for like from like the 5, 6, 7 yard line, but not you didn't see us rush many from the 2.
Right. That's true. Yeah. Then it came to throwing time, and Bo was racking up those touchdowns near the end zone to pad his touchdown stats, I guess, or running for them like he did once or twice. I'm interested in your thoughts on, and this will help kind of the shift into the offseason mode of it's great, it's fantastic. Bo Levi Mitchell played all 18 games for the second year in a row. I know he just re-signed a 2-year contract, I believe, with the team just
Yes.
this week. So huge news for the Ticats to get Bo Levi Mitchell back for the next 2 years. We're, of course, getting down to the latter end of his career here. A lot of the talk has been what's the succession plan for the team. I know there's been, some talk about Taylor Powell. He really has not gotten the reps for 2 years in a row because Bo stayed healthy, whereas, backup QBs across the CFL might have. Powell being a free agent this year. What are your thoughts on Taylor Powell or kind of the succession plan behind Bo Levi Mitchell for this team?
So, for those that don't know, when he had his press conference the other day, so even though he had signed a 2-year deal, he's still taking it 1 year at a time. So after
Okay.
this year, he's gonna relook at things, and if he's still good to go, then he'll play that second year. If he thinks, okay, my body took a beating this year, I'm not up to snuff anymore, then he'll retire. Then, like, I was having this discussion the other day with someone that when Harris, Caleros, and Mitchell all retire, that's half of the league's, well, I wouldn't, a quarter of the league's quarterbacks gone.
Right.
Like, and then if you're Powell, how long are you going to want to be in Hamilton to stand behind Bo if you're not getting the reps? Like, you could arguably go be a starter in Ottawa.
Well, I think Ottawa's got a bit of a logjam there with Drew Brown, Dustin Crum. Like, I can't see them adding another QB to the mix unless they
I
move
mean,
on.
as of right now, they only have Drew Brown signed.
Okay, yeah. Like if
And
Crum doesn't come back for whatever reason, do you get Powell?
yeah, Drew Brown's making 400 and just north of 450,000, but the guy obviously is injured prone. Like, he can't stay healthy.
Yeah, as a backup QB, are you taking a look at the market, like somebody who's typically been in a backup role and saying, "Oh, this guy gets injured the most. I want to go there because I'm going to get the starting opportunity." Like, I wonder how much that plays into QB decisions because on one hand, you would say if you're a developing quarterback, or okay, let's say like Taylor Powell, you're probably not getting a starting job out of the gate in the CFL right now. You have not shown enough in order to get that kind of job, in my opinion. But you're not going to get the opportunity if Bo stays completely healthy for the third straight year, but you're also going to get the opportunity to learn behind Bo Levi Mitchell. Like, are you trying to go somewhere else where, hey, this QB gets injured more often, maybe he'll get more playing time? It would be interesting to
And
see.
then you don't realize the freak accident that Montreal went through.
Yeah,
It's
exactly.
like that could happen to any team.
That could happen. If Bo could get in. Yeah, it could happen to him just as much as it happens to anybody else. So even if your offensive line is as good as possible, one hit is all it takes to get that QB injury. So I personally, if it was me in that category, like I'm not trying to play that kind of game of like, oh, this guy's gonna get injured, so I'm gonna go there. I'm probably trying to find the best way to move up opportunity from a playing standpoint. But
like I want to be able to see the offense move the ball around more this year.
okay, yeah,
Like, just not to Keon, like, throw it to Shamar Bridges, Giovanni Robinson, Tyler Janowski, like, not just Kenny Lawler, Keandre, and who knows if at this point if even Tim White's coming back or not.
yeah. Let's shift into looking at the free agent list in general here, and we won't go too deep onto it. I know it's early in the off season. There's a lot of movement. There will be lots of conversations about the team's look throughout the offseason. But we can start there, like you were talking about the receivers there a little bit. Tim White's a free agent. Wooden's a free agent. Brendan O'Leary Orange is a free agent. Brugling, Bridges, that kind of rounds out the crew. So Lawler's under contract. Keandre Smith is under contract. To me, that's the two most crucials that you bring back in that category. Interesting as well that we talk about Bo hyperfixating on those three kind of guys, because that was not Bo Levi Mitchell in Calgary ever. I feel like he was the type of guy the last couple of seasons where any given week he's completing passes to 9 different players, and we really didn't see that a whole ton this year. So I'm with you. Of a focus point for me is the depth at wide receiver. I'd love to see them bring back Brendan O'Leary Orange, because I thought he had some good games down the stretch when given the opportunities, and he was kind of in a backup receiver role a little bit at times in the year. I like to see him give him maybe a little more starting opportunities there this season.
So here's where I'm gonna go with this, and I'm gonna kind of put the GM hat on. Yeah, Tim. So here's my whole thing with the Tim White fiasco is. There's two different ways that you could look at it. You could look at it, Tim White, 4 1,000-yard seasons in a row, 6 to 7 touchdowns per season. Okay. Then you have the Tim White over on this side that I don't even know how many drops over the seasons he's had. It's like, well, after you've seen what Philpott and all of them just got, does Tim White have now a case to get not as high, but that 230, 240, or do you say you go and bring in not as high as a vet, but still bring in another veteran receiver, but then use that money elsewhere that you need to upgrade, say, defensive line, linebacker? Because, don't get me wrong, American receivers are a dime a dozen. We've seen that with Brandon Banks. We've seen that with Luke Tasker. Like, all these people can be found anywhere and everywhere.
I don't disagree. It's an interesting conversation and definitely a focal point of our watch on this team throughout the offseason is, Tim White has been, that standout Ticat guy at receiver for, like you said, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons, in conversation for best receiver in the CFL, top 10 receiver, definitely can be. And is the team willing to move on from him? And what does that receiving core look like? What else for you stands out is what's the focus this offseason for this team? I think you said pre-show 20-something free agents for them. Last year, I thought they didn't need to do a whole ton. They ended up doing a whole ton. So I'm interested to know
this isn't a player position standout. I want to say this is more of like a league-wide thing. I'm pumped to see more multi-year deals. Like I've seen more 2-3-year deals than I've seen 1-year deals for re-signing players. So if things are looking up and up for the league, sign people for longer term deals, because nothing I hate more as a fan than going to buy someone's jersey. They're here for 1 year and then they're gone.
Yeah, I won't put a name on a jersey. Like I do not have a name on a jersey for that reason. If I'm getting anybody on there, like it's probably a legacy name type of thing, because player movement too often, right? I like to see that as well. That's exciting to see. We've seen a lot of those bigger contracts in years past, more years, more length on them, guaranteed money on them. It's exciting to see that kind of shift around the CFL, and it'll make for an interesting balancing of the books for teams this offseason as well. Defensive side of the ball, again, I need to see this team focus on the run defense. I cannot have them come into next year again and week 1, who are they playing week 1 next year?
Montreal at home.
You cannot have Stevie Scott III come in and rush for 150 on this team in week 1, for example, next year. I want to see a shift in the run defense there as well. Would be the most notable impact for me. And while the defense came up with those big plays, like I think there is tinkering at receiver that you need to do a little bit, like we talked about, but for a defense. While they came up with the big plays, they also gave up a lot. I would love to see them trend upwards in a lot of those statistical categories. So I'm investing in the defense this offseason if I'm the Ticats. Any other thoughts on free agency ahead for the team?
So I will put it this way: it's going to be an interesting January, only because there's so many free agents left out there. Like if you think about it, Ryan, we're what, December 16th now, 14 days left in this month. Okay, take off next week because everyone's with family and celebrating. Okay, so no one does anything there. You have this week, last week of January, then you only have a month to the tampering window. You don't have much time. So you got to decide what you want to do within the next month of who you're going to resign, who you're not going to resign, like who you want to, give them the option of going out and seeing what you can get out there, who you want. Like I'm sure so I don't want to mention the person's name because there's a lot of hate for him in the league. But I spoke to an upper management person around middle half of the season, and he said like when they were re-signing that team's players, they were within like $10,000 to $20,000 of where kind of like people were wanting to go. And by week 19, week 20 of who you're bringing back and who you're not bringing back.
Right.
So it's just like, okay, well, what do we like for Ticats, for example? Are you going by committee for GM, or like they haven't even announced a GM yet? So you may sign these players now, but come like say they go and bring someone from out west, as an example, he might have a completely different mindset of what he thinks of a team, and now he has players on the team that he may not want, and now he has to wait so many years before they're gone. That's why it would have been best to have a GM beginning of the offseason, so at least he can put his spin on things, his stamp. But keep in mind, Ted Vea wasn't announced till December of last year either. So
it's such a unique position to be in, like to be looking for a new general manager, not because your previous one struggled and put the team in a bad spot. Like normally, if you're looking for a new GM, I mean, there's a couple of ways it could happen. One is they could leave for a VP of football operations job somewhere else, for example, because they are
you fire them
job. But that happens less rarely than, oh, they messed up, we fired them, and they're kind of leaving the team in a not great state for whoever's coming next. Well, that's not the situation this time around because there was no firing. There was the tragic passing of the general manager, and now they need to find somebody to go and fill the void this year for that. So whoever comes in to take the job, like I think they're better almost in a better state than a lot of GMs coming into teams would be, because they're not inheriting a roster that led to a firing, so to say. But yeah, it kind of helps to have a GM before free agency strikes.
Because you have the operations cap. If you're not going to hire anyone, go and give it to Coach O and let him be the GM.
Oh, see, I'm never a fan of the coach and GM combo. My opinion is if you're trying to do two jobs, you're doing neither of them excellently.
I mean, look at Dinwiddie; he's doing three. So I mean,
yeah,
the one I will say though, the one name that I'm hoping that we don't announce as GM that was latest rumored was Brock Sutherland, that made that whole big mess fiasco in Edmonton. I so hope that he is not our next GM.
I would share the same sentiments. Yeah, what names are out there right now for GM?
So Carson from Saskatchewan said no. Danny McManus said no, and he's re-signed with um,
Winnipeg.
Winnipeg. Um, Brock Sutherland was one. I'm trying to think of. See, it's not like where Three Down comes out with like a long list of like candidates,
Right.
but at the same time, it's not like there's other teams that I'm not going to mention who tried to go hire people, and a lot of people, every person that they tried to hire said no.
Right.
It's just Carson wanted. I think he's the assistant GM in Saskatchewan. They just won a championship. I'm sure they want to run it back. Um, who's the one in Winnipeg? It's not O'Shea. It's
Walters.
yes, Walters. Walters and McManus have a tight relationship, so it's not like I honestly don't even know who they're gonna bring in. It's just it would just be nice that they do it soon so that that person can focus on
Right.
like right now. Like right now, it's Scott Mitchell, Orlando Steinhoward, and the scouting team that's kind of like working as a group to put the team together. That's
Yeah,
what I'm
you
saying. Do
definitely.
they go by the committee or do they go as like one GM?
Yeah, you definitely want something in place there before free agency. Although it wouldn't be the first time a team has entered free agency without leadership at the top of the organization. After all, just a couple years ago, the Alouettes didn't have an owner as of like 12 hours before free agency day, and they went
And
on
they
to win
couldn't sign players.
and they couldn't sign players, and they ended up going on to win the cup that year. So it worked out okay for them there. As we wrap up with our season review here of the Ticats deep dive
Yes.
into them, anything else about this Ticat season that you want to talk about?
So those people who have not seen it, so I would go on to the Hamilton Ticats YouTube page.
Hmm.
There was an excellent Made in the Hammer documentary following them from training camp all the way to the playoff game. Keep in mind, I will give you the heads up. I don't know if it's 2 or 3, but the Ted Gavea one you're gonna want Kleenexes for because
Okay,
man, that
yeah.
was the most brutal episode to watch. But it was a great series. So I mean, they're only 30. Like the first 4 were like 30-minute episodes. The last one was 21. So I mean, it's a nice little documentary if you want to go watch it.
Nice. Yeah, check that out. I love that kind of stuff. I know the folks out in BC with the Lions do a great job of documentaries and like video footage for the team and producing stuff like that as well. More teams putting out content like that, please, because it really helps with giving the inside access to the players and the humans on the team outside of just what we see from them for the hour a week or 3 hours a week out on the football field. So definitely check that out as well. 11-7 season for the Ticats, first in the East. They fall in the playoff round, but I think a promising season for this team, an interesting offseason ahead for them. But at this point in time in December, I'm feeling pretty comfortable about their ability to finish top 2 in the East once again going into next year. Because Montreal should still be good, but Ottawa is, you never know, can they keep a quarterback healthy? And Toronto just has the nightmare schedule situation going into next year. So, hey, you got an extra home game, Rick. Congrats.
I mean, it wouldn't have made a difference if it was 2 in Toronto or 2 in Hamilton. Toronto home games are home games for us, anyways.
That's true. You do travel well. You do travel well. All right, let's wrap things up here. So what's coming up next on the podcast? So we're actually going to be back in just a couple of days. Myself, Adam, and Trey are going to be back talking about the CFL schedule. So good segue into that, I guess. That schedule came out last week. You can go and check that out. And we have some thoughts because it's a very interesting schedule. So we're going to break it all down, talk about the most interesting pieces from this season's schedule. So look forward to that coming out Thursday night. We'll be live 10 p.m. Eastern time recording that one, which you can subscribe to our YouTube channel to get notified when we go live for that. Of course, you can find it on all your podcast feeds late that night as well. And then after that, we get into, much like the teams that are going to be quiet on the movement front. Next week is holiday time. It's the Christmas season, so no new episode of the podcast next week. Taking time off for the holidays. Might see if I can squeeze in another deep dive last week of December. We've done, I think, 4 so far. We've got 5 more to fit in before free agency hits here yet. So it's crunch time because free agency is the start of February. But I'll see if I can fit that in. No promises, though, but for sure, early January, the deep dive series will resume and more podcast coverage to come from the Canadian Football Countdown for that. You can get notified about everything we've got going on by finding us on social media at CF Countdown Pod on X or Blue Sky and Facebook.com/CF Countdown Pod as well. Or join the Discord. Links in the episode description. It's free to join us over there. You can chat with us. You can chat with Rick. You can chat with a bunch of other fans in between all of our episodes there as well. Always fun to chat with folks in the Discord community. Check out all the other great shows from around the Canadian Football Podcast Network at CF Pod Network on X, Alternative Football Network shows at the official AFN on X or alternativefootballnetwork.com. Rick, it's been so fun having you here tonight to talk through everything about the Ticats. It's been a great discussion. Lots of fun.
I'm just gonna drop this little tidbit for you guys on Thursday.
Sure.
If you take a look at the Ticats' last 5 weeks, 2 against Edmonton, 2 against Ottawa, and a bye. Perfect start to the playoffs.
Great. Perfect. I do like that Edmonton and Ottawa play each other in week 1. So one of those teams has to win in week 1 this season after they've been bottom of their respective divisions, it feels like, for the last couple of years. But it's been great to have you here chatting through the Ticats. Besides in the Discord, where can people find everything else you've got going on these days? Plug whatever you like.
Yeah, so so as Ryan had mentioned, you can find me on HS Central YT on X. Basically, I'm going to be doing coverage for OUA football this year. Ticats, there's some rumblings that we're going to be getting another HL team, so I'm going to be covering that. But yeah, then there, like he had mentioned earlier, there's the Canadian Football Central that I host with Carter. He's another Bombers fan, so all Ticat and Bomber fans are getting well acquainted. But that's pretty much it.
All right, yeah, check out all the content aplenty from both of those channels, so go check that out as well, because Rick's doing a lot of great work there. Hope you enjoyed the show here today. Hope Ticats fans enjoyed a deep dive into their season here. And whatever podcast platform you're listening on, we appreciate if you do all the fun things like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, share the show with your friends, help us grow the show. We always appreciate that. Share it with your friends, share it with your non-friends, share it with the Ticats fans in your life, or share it with somebody who could care less about them, and maybe you'll convert them to a fan after hearing all this conversation here today. On behalf of special guest Rick, I'm Ryan saying thank you for listening. Take care. Have a good one. Bye.